We have reached a fever pitch to the war in Gaza that cannot be ignored. Here we have reports that the United Nations is warning 14,000 babies in Gaza will die in 48 hours without aid. And I have to tell you, this report came out 2 days ago.
Now to the urgent warnings tonight about the humanitarian crisis worsening in Gaza. The UN now warning that 14,000 babies could die within 48 hours if aid doesn't reach them right away. Here's our chief foreign correspondent, Ian Pannell.
As Israel unleashes a furious aerial attack and expands ground operations deeper into Gaza, growing international condemnation over the rapidly unfolding humanitarian disaster.
So there are people speaking out from other countries. They're getting unified to say starvation cannot be a part of war, modern war in 2025. We live in a time now with technology that can be precise. Our country, we have our own skeletons. We're still drone bombing buildings and hoping that we got the good guy or the bad guy, and the collateral damage is colossal. We have blood on our hands. That is a fact. But what we're watching play out right now is an absolute atrocity, one in which I cannot be complicit in being a part of by not sharing this with you guys. I know it's a lot to share. It's heavy, but we have the chance with the world we live in. We have the chance to make this story so loud and elevated that the gates open up and that the humanitarian aid can come in. Now, in the past, and in the recent past, you'd be called an anti-Semitic to sort of want to defend the innocent lives, because there's this idea where if you're for these innocent lives, you're against these. There's multiple things that can be true. There's a terror organization called Hamas that is running the Palestinians into the ground. They themselves have hid, their whereabouts underneath certain hospitals or, disguised ambulances as attack vehicles and whatnot. They've done this. They're bad people. And at the same time, the government in Israel has gone too far. And we need to make sure we clarify, we are speaking about the government of Israel and not Israelis. There's plenty of people in Israel that don't like what's going on. Just like in our country, there's plenty of people that don't like what's going on here. I don't like the lack of due process, whether it's for citizens or immigrants, whether it's for visa holders being deported to El Salvadorian prisons. I don't like that one bit, and we're using our voice to sort of fight our fight that we have here, in our homeland. But what we're watching play out abroad needs to stop, and it needs to stop now. And other countries are taking action, and as citizens of the United States of America, we cannot be the last to the party here. Now, our government and our tax dollars have been complicit in some of what's going on, but right now, regardless of where we stood, regardless of where you stand or I stand, I think we all can agree on the fact that starving kids need to be fed. Have a listen to this.
The UK, France, and Canada have released a joint statement saying that they would take actions against Israel if they did not lift the blockade on humanitarian aid to the Palestinian territory. They're also saying that Israel needs to completely stop the expansion of the military offensive in the Gaza Strip and stop expanding illegal settlements in the occupied West Bank, saying that these countries would be willing to impose sanctions as a result. Now, the Israeli Prime Minister said that Israel is now allowing a very basic amount of food into the Palestinian territory, something these countries say is wholly inadequate.
Yeah, there are literally so many starving babies, children, and adults in the Gaza region right now. The food that they're allowing in is not enough. And the food that is available on the other side, just waiting for the doors to open up. It's there, and the United Nations and other humanitarian aid organizations are begging to let them feed these kids. It's absolutely ridiculous. Now, we covered Senator Van Hollen already, but here he is speaking out loudly about what's going on.
The UN's begging to go in. The Israeli government says they don't want to work with the UN here. They want to work with this Gaza Humanitarian Foundation that's just being set up. What do you know about this? Should there be U.S. support for it?
So, Margaret, you're right. It's very hard to look at those pictures. And the United States has been complicit. President Trump was in the region and really did nothing, said virtually nothing about what's happening in Gaza, which is on fire. We're in 77th day of a full blockade. 2 million Palestinians are starving.
And listen, this is a humanitarian issue. It does not have to be political. President Biden also is complicit in this. Regardless of what side of the aisle you're on, we have to look at the people that are starving and see them as our own, because we're all humans. And we can't sit by and watch this. And you might think, Dave, what the heck can we do about this? Share. Talk to people. Let people know that you don't stand for this. And believe it or not, today, we can all come together and make enough noise to make a change. This can happen today. It has to. There is no more time.
This is collective punishment that is clearly illegal under international law. And this other idea that's been cooked up either by the Israelis or by the Trump administration is clearly not fit for purpose when it comes to trying to address this burgeoning famine. And all it will do is further allow food to be used as a weapon of war. So I hope the United States will back off this plan. None of the credible international organizations have said that they will participate because it violates, international norms and how it's structured. And so I hope the United States will back off and immediately call today to allow the trucks right now that have food to be able to come provide food to starving people. These are provided by international aid organizations.
Is there anything that the United States can do in terms of leverage? You've been bipartisan in your criticism. You said that what happened in Gaza is a black stain on Joe Biden's legacy as president. You are criticizing the current administration for not doing more here. What leverage is there? I mean, is what you're saying falling on any ears that want to listen?
Well, I've had conversations with some people in the Trump administration and made clear that they need to do more. One of the very obvious things they could do is President Trump today could call upon the Netanyahu government to let aid in. I mean, the president acknowledged there are people starving in Gaza the other day. He said so. Mm-hmm. But why hasn't he called on, Netanyahu to let the aid in? Let's just start with that.
I agree. Tweet, share, make some noise. Now, here's an interesting video. This video is almost a month old. This is a guy who lives in Gaza, and what's very interesting about this crisis is the people of Gaza are trying to get their message out, right? It's kind of the first time we've got something, or, we've got the social media and the technology here to share your story, but there's a lot of silencing of what's going on. So they're kind of making what seems like very playful videos to kind of get into the algorithm and then sharing the absolute truth of what's going down. So there's been something like 77 or more straight days since this blockade of food. Now imagine you don't have food for 5-6 days. Now imagine day 9, day 10, every market's running dry. There's only a couple locally grown vegetables. The canned goods are gone. Day 30, day 40, day 50, several months later, and they still don't have any markets where they can go to. Any food that is available is extremely expensive and scarce. And again, like I said, this video right here is several weeks old.
I'm gonna go to the markets right now. Look at the shovel next to me. That's crazy. So I was pretty hungry, so I went to the market and I was really shocked. This guy who usually sells vegetables, all his shelves are empty. Maybe he's closed down, so I went to another shop. Also empty. So I went to grab a drink. Empty. The market's empty, bro. I'll just go home. So why is the market empty? Well, the borders have been closed since March 2nd. That's 8 weeks. Since the border is closed, no food has been entering. If you're lucky enough to find something in the markets, it's expensive. And there's no proper food, which means everyone in Gaza is malnutritioned.
And by everyone, we're talking several million people, right? So imagine a Yankee Stadium full of people. That's 50,000. Now you do the math on that. 20 times that? I mean, how many people out here, just imagine as you watch this, maybe you're grabbing a breakfast. We don't even know what it feels like to starve. We might know what it feels like to be hungry, maybe you skipped a meal, but to starve to these levels, we know nothing about it. Now, Miss Rachel has spoken out against the starvation. She's spoken for all the children in different war-torn areas, whether it be in Gaza, whether it be the hostages that Hamas has taken, right? You can fight the fight where just because you're trying to help the million or so children in Gaza doesn't mean you're not trying to help the hostages that the Hamas has taken, right? And also the children in Ukraine that have been part of war-torn areas and other places. Well, she's spoken out to the point where there have been organizations that want her investigated for being associated with Hamas, which couldn't be further from the truth. She's a goddamn American hero is what she is. She's educated millions of kids, provided entertainment on YouTube as like a childhood educator and songwriter. And also she donated $1 million to try to help kids. But this money and the donations are not getting where they need to go.
It's sad that people try to make it controversial when you speak out for children that are facing immeasurable suffering. The largest cohort of child amputees in modern history, that acronym for a child who has no surviving relatives. Yep. And I think it should be controversial to not say anything.
You mentioned silence and how you really need to speak out. It's weird not to speak out. I'm sure you have a lot of good people in your lives, well-meaning friends and family, who are saying to you, just be quiet. It's not worth it. Think about yourself and your career and your family and your safe. Just shh. Don't go there. A lot of celebrities don't say anything about this stuff. What do you say to them?
Well, I say, what would you want someone to do if you were there? Because as a mother, I met Isra, Rahaf's mom, and if I was there and she was here, what would I want her to do?
And that's what empathy is, putting yourself in someone else's shoes. And it's so easy to hear these terms of the wars in Gaza and genocides and what's this and what's that, and think that's not my problem. I mean, I have friends and family that know nothing about what's going on right there. And yet social media, it puts it in our pockets, and you can't avoid the atrocities of what's going on. Luckily, other governments and organizations are making a lot of noise here. But it involves all of us, and it's something that we need to take a stand for.
Can you imagine what it says about Israel? That to have watched 2 million people, the majority of whom are children, and then a huge portion are women, and then men who have nothing to do with Hamas, to sit there and watch them just starve to death is something the Israelis as a whole, as a country, are perfectly happy to watch.
And again, it is not the Israelis as a whole are perfectly happy to watch. It is the government that is letting this happen.
Into a cause, and therefore allowing even little bits and pieces of some flour into Gaza to prevent the world watching them starve to death. That's unpopular in Israel, to allow some food in. Nobody, by the way, is asking Israel to provide the food. The food's there. It comes from international organizations, from World Hunger Groups, from the UN. The issue isn't that Israel refuses to feed the Palestinians. The issue is that Israel is blocking the entrance of humanitarian trucks that have been furnished by other international aid groups and humanitarian organizations.
Now, there was a ship that was arriving that was bombed, and people have said, well, no, this is Hamas starving the people. And it's like, listen, I'm sure both things have happened. I'm sure there has been times where the Hamas has taken the goods and starved their own people to be these sort of martyr terrorists. Absolutely. But in this case, we cannot play that card. It is the Israeli government, and the pressure needs to be put on them to let these trucks in. Here is a TikTok in Egypt, right? Not far away from the gates to feed these kids. And look at all the food that's just sitting there waiting to be delivered.
Hi, I'm Karim from WCK Egypt team. We are here nearby the border gate. We are waiting the crossing to open because we have so many trucks here. We are waiting the crossing to open to enter Gaza. All these trucks is waiting here for a while, and all these trucks are loaded with humanitarian aid, relief equipment, and we hope the crossing opens soon. Thank you.
And so do I. And I cannot wait till I can report on this story from a place where we have the food going to the kids and to the family. British doctors in Gaza say, stop talking, do something.
Do something. Stop talking and do something.
A really large bomb has just gone off not far to the east of us.
And so, of course, they're sharing, they're there, they're in the areas, they're treating these victims with no sterilization. Hospitals this week still being bombed. Hundreds of people have died. The ceasefires are falling apart. And finally, people are coming together and saying, no, we're not going to let this happen.
I'm currently in an UNRWA warehouse in Amman, Jordan. Just this morning, I received footage from my colleagues in Gaza. They have absolutely nothing left. And yet here, just a few hours away, there's everything. There's enough food here for 200,000 people alone for an entire month. There's critical medication, life-saving medical supplies, everything that everybody needs. It's been sitting here for weeks on end, ready to enter the Gaza Strip. We need this aid to enter now. It has to go to people who are desperate. These families, they are being starved and bombed every day in horrendous, appalling conditions. Every basic right, every basic need has not been met. And we can change this. We have everything here. We have the mechanisms in place. We just need the political will.
There it is. They need the political will. And I think it's coming. I truly think it's coming, but it has to happen today.
We're now entering a dark new phase in this conflict. Netanyahu's government is planning to drive Gazans from their homes into a corner of the Strip to the south and permit them a fraction of the aid that they need. Yesterday, Minister Smodrik even spoke of Israeli forces cleansing Gaza. Destroying what's left of residents, Palestinians, being relocated, he said, to third countries. We must call this what it is. It is extremism. It is dangerous. It is repellent. It is monstrous, and I condemn it in the strongest possible terms.
Powerful stuff. And listen, it's been several years of war. And of course, October 7th was a terrible terrorist attack on the Israeli people. And it's a complicated scenario that's been playing out for a century, right? The lack of peace in the Middle East. I've received messages and continue to receive messages from people all over sharing extreme opinions on what's going on. And for a long time, I remained silent because I didn't know for myself what to think and what to do. It was never a fear that I'd lose an audience member. You guys know, crack an egg to make an omelet. Sometimes that's just what happens. I want to be impeccable with my word, and I want to be able to share with people what I know. And what I know now is that these kids are starving. And we've known this for a good bit. And we had people reach out actually last year that listened to the Rush Hour podcast, and they reached out from Gaza. And I had a hard time keeping up with them. And they were asking me why I wasn't doing anything. And I felt helpless. And to an extent, I still feel helpless. And to those people who probably no longer listen, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I can't and haven't been part of a movement that is larger and bigger that can offer this change. But today, I'm begging people, let's stop this and let's feed these kids. That's it for me. I'll be back this afternoon.